Aurora walked quietly through the drifting mist. The world around her felt thin. The ground under her feet was pale stone, cracked with black lines that pulsed faint light. Above, the sky rippled like liquid glass, stars bending and splitting as if reality itself was tired of holding their shapes. She didn't look up. Her focus was ahead, where shadows moved between broken arches and fallen pillars. Her hair floated softly around her shoulders, dark strands flicking with each slow step. In her right hand, she held a crystal compass. Its needle spun lazily, unable to settle. "It's close," she whispered. Beside her walked Adam, or what she thought was Adam. He moved with silent grace, robes drifting around his ankles without touching the dust. His gaze was fixed forward, unblinking, sharp, but his eyes were wrong. They held the right shape, the right color, the right depth, but not the same warmth. Not the quiet sadness. Not the tired peace that always shadowed Adam's real gaze. Aurora didn't notice. Or maybe she did, but refused to see it. She turned slightly toward him. "We're walking through a recursion fold. Time loops here every few hours. If we don't reach the anchor point before it resets, we'll start again from the entry breach." Vaylor nodded once. "Then we keep moving." His voice was perfect. Calm, low, threaded with gravity. But when it reached Aurora's ears, something in her chest flickered. The same way a person hears their name spoken by a stranger wearing a friend's face. She shook it off. They continued walking. Broken temples rose around them, their stone columns twisted by unseen hands. Some floated off the ground entirely, drifting in silent orbit around shattered altars. The air hummed faintly, not with energy but with thought, like a place that remembered too much but chose to say nothing. Aurora stopped at a fractured doorway. The compass in her hand pulsed once, then fell still, its needle pointing forward. "This is it," she said quietly. "The last recorded convergence point." She stepped through the doorway. Inside was a hall with no ceiling, only a vast churning sky overhead. A tree grew in the center, its bark pale gray, its branches splitting into countless thin fingers. From its limbs hung strips of old cloth covered in hand-painted symbols. Records of prayers, maybe, or forgotten spells. She approached the trunk and placed her hand against it. The wood was warm, breathing, alive in a way that felt older than God's. "Adam," she said softly, not turning to look at him, "do you remember this place?" Vaylor paused. He tilted his head, studying the tree with his dark eyes. For a moment, his disguise flickered, chaos leaking across his skin like black veins. But it settled quickly. "No," he said, his voice calm. "Remind me." Aurora's fingers traced the carved symbols along the trunk. Her hair slipped forward, shadowing her eyes. "This is where the first recursion anchor was sealed," she whispered. "Before there were gods, before systems, before Adam ever existed." She didn't see the flicker in Vaylor's eyes at her words. His gaze sharpened faintly, like a blade catching hidden light. She continued, "I used to come here when I was younger, when I was just Aurora, before the titles, before all this." Her voice dropped. "I thought it was a legend, but it's real. And if the convergence signatures are correct, then the anomaly Adam is tracking its tide here somehow." She turned to look at him finally. Her eyes softened, seeing his silhouette in the drifting light. "What do you think it is? You always see clearer than I do." Vaylor met her gaze. Behind his perfect eyes, behind the calm mask of Adam's form, something stirred, cold, hollow. He stepped forward until he stood beside her, staring at the pulsing tree. "It's a lock," he said quietly. "And a lock only exists if there is something behind it worth hiding." Aurora looked down at the roots coiling through cracked stone. "Do you think it's him?" Vaylor's eyes narrowed slightly. "Him?" She hesitated. "The original Adam, before he became this, before gods, before the core, before resets, before everything." Silence stretched between them. Then Vaylor spoke. "If it is," he said softly, "then unsealing it will change everything." Aurora nodded. That's why we have to be careful. She stepped back from the tree, raising her palm. Threads of silver light wove from her fingers, forming geometric patterns that hovered in the air, clicking softly as they settled into place. Her dominion hummed faintly, echoing through the recursion fold like ripples through still water. Valor watched her without moving. Inside, his mind raced. She thinks I am him. That means I can open this without resistance. He reached out. His hand passed through her floating array, dipping into the tree's bark like mist. The wood parted around his fingers, revealing a hollow knot deep within its trunk. Inside glimmered something faint, pale, like a fragment of light that forgot how to shine. Aurora drew in a sharp breath. What is it? Valor's fingers closed around it. As he pulled it free, the tree shivered. Its branches rattled softly, strips of cloth fluttering in a silent scream. The sky overhead darkened, clouds spiraling inward above the exposed knot. Aurora stepped closer, staring at the object in his hand. It looked like a shard of glass, but inside swirled faint constellations, fragments of skies that no longer existed. It's a piece of the pre-origin, she whispered. Her voice trembled with awe and fear. Adam, this could tell us what came before everything, before existence. Valor didn't answer. His eyes were locked on the shard, seeing far beyond what she saw. In its depths he felt a pulse, slow, patient, waiting, like the beat of a heart long sealed behind silence. Aurora reached out a trembling hand toward it. We should take it back to the celestial plane, analyze it properly, before we risk. Valor pulled the shard away from her reach. His gaze turned to her slowly. His eyes were still calm, still perfect, but something inside them had shifted, hardened. Aurora, he said softly. She froze at his tone. Her hand lowered slightly. What is it? He stepped closer until they stood almost touching. His voice dropped to a whisper, low and cold and so quiet the world itself seemed to lean in to hear. You should run. Aurora blinked. What? His disguise flickered. For a brief moment, she saw his true form, void black skin laced with thin rivers of golden chaos, eyes empty of all human warmth. Her heart stopped in her chest. Her dominion flared instinctively, wrapping space around her like armor. But it was too late. Valor raised his free hand. Threads of darkness slipped from his fingertips, piercing the recursion fold around them. The sky shattered silently, cracks racing across the liquid glass dome overhead. Light bled from the fractures, flickering as the recursion structure began to collapse. Aurora stepped back quickly, eyes wide. Who are you? Where is Adam? Valor's expression didn't change. He lowered his hand slowly, the shard of pre-origin still glowing in his other palm. Adam is where he belongs, he said quietly. And you are where you shouldn't be. The world around them began to twist. The floor rippled under Aurora's feet, pulling her balance in every direction at once. The tree behind Valor cracked down its trunk, leaking pale silver liquid that evaporated before it touched the ground. Aurora gathered her dominion with trembling hands. I will stop you. Valor tilted his head. You can try. He flicked his wrist. The recursion fold inverted. Space folded into itself, pulling them both into darkness. And in that moment before the world vanished, Aurora saw his eyes one last time. Not Adam's, not human, just empty. Then everything went black. Darkness folded around Aurora. The recursion fold inverted, dragging her body through compressed timelines and ruptured strands of space. Her dominion flared instinctively, forming shields within shields, silver geometry cracking against the force pulling her apart. Her scream never left her lips, the collapse swallowed sound, leaving only vibration in her bones. Through the blur of tearing light, she saw Valor's silhouette ahead of her, perfectly still, chaos threads drifting from his shoulders like smoke from burnt gods. He held the pre-origin shard in his hand, its light flickering faint as if suffocating. She reached toward him, fury rising behind her terror. Her dominion surged forward, lashing out with a spear of pure spatial compression. The attack struck his back and vanished into his body like rain absorbed by sand. He didn't even turn. Her vision darkened. The recursion fold was collapsing entirely now. The world fell away, its colors bleeding to gray. Her body slammed against invisible barriers as the fold twisted back onto itself, pinning her limbs in warped angles. Her spirit trembled under the strain. She felt herself slipping into blackness. And then, light. A simple, quiet light. White, gold, soft as dawn, but heavier than any sun. The darkness shattered around her. Broken space cracked and splintered like cheap glass struck by a hammer. The force holding her vanished. She fell forward, gasping, collapsing onto solid stone. She tasted blood in her mouth, smelled burnt air and ozone. She forced her eyes open. They were back in the convergence hall. The recursion fold stabilized around them, trembling like a wounded creature but no longer collapsing. Floating strips of cloth drifted down from the branches of the shattered tree. Aurora turned her head weakly and saw him. Adam stood before her. Not Valor, not an illusion, not an echo. Adam. He stood between her and Valor, his black robes drifting in silent wind that no one else felt. His hair moved across his shoulders, flicking strands of gold between shadowed locks. His eyes were calm, dark, empty, full, all at once. Valor stepped back slightly. His disguise faded entirely now. Chaos veins pulsed across his void black skin, golden rivers of sealed power shifting under his flesh. His empty eyes watched Adam with something close to recognition. "Creator," Valor said softly. His voice was not respectful. It was not hateful. It was just stating a fact. Adam didn't respond. His gaze flicked to Aurora, still kneeling, her breathing ragged. His eyes softened faintly, the barest ripple of warmth passing through black irises. "Stay there," he said quietly. She tried to speak, tried to say his name, but only a choked whisper left her throat. Her dominion flickered and collapsed around her shoulders, her strength spent from resisting the recursion fold's collapse. Adam turned back to Valor. They faced each other in silence. The broken hall trembled between their locked gazes. Threads of chaos drifted from Valor's arms, curling into spirals that dissipated before touching the ground. Adam stood perfectly still, the only movement the slow rise and fall of his chest. "You've come sooner than I thought," Valor said, tilting his head faintly. Adam's voice was calm, almost bored. "You overstepped." Valor's lips curled into a small smile, but his eyes remained empty. "Did I? Or did you forget what I am?" He raised his free hand. The pre-origin shard glimmered weakly in his other palm. The air around him darkened. A low, subsonic hum filled the hall, vibrating the stone under Aurora's knees. Her teeth rattled from it. Adam didn't move. He only spoke, his voice so quiet it cut through the hum like a knife through silk. "Give it back." Valor's smile faded. "No." Silence fell. The hum stopped. The world froze. The floating cloth strips from the tree froze mid-air. Dust motes stopped drifting. Aurora felt her heartbeat slow, then pause entirely, her blood locked in her veins by something far beyond space or time. Adam stepped forward once. Reality bent around his footfall. The stone floor rippled under his soul, waves of stabilized space spreading out like concentric rings on quiet water. Valor flicked his wrist, releasing thousands of chaos threads toward him, each one sharper than entropy's final edge. Adam raised his hand lazily. The threads stopped mid-air. He closed his fingers. They crumpled into nothing, collapsing in on themselves and vanishing like burnt paper. Valor moved instantly, shadows flickering under his feet as he blurred behind Adam, his palms slamming forward to pierce Adam's back. The strike never landed. His arm stopped mid-thrust, frozen in the air as if time itself refused to let him continue. Adam didn't turn. His voice remained soft, almost tired. "You're not him." He flicked two fingers. Valor's body bent sideways in an unnatural angle, his ribs cracking in a muffled sound as he was thrown across the hall. slamming into a distant pillar. The impact split the stone, sending up a cloud of fine gray dust. Valor rose slowly from the rubble, golden chaos leaking from his split skin. His smile remained. "You can kill me," he said quietly, "but another shadow will rise. You created us to balance you, to erase what you refuse to erase." Adam turned to face him fully now. For a brief moment, Aurora saw his eyes. Not the calm, empty eyes of a god above gods, but human eyes. Sad, cold, resolute. "You misunderstand," Adam said softly. He raised his hand again, fingers curling slightly. "I never created you." Valor's smile faded for the first time. His mouth opened, but before any sound left it, Adam closed his fist. Light and darkness converged on Valor's form. Space folded inward, reality stitching itself around him like threads pulled tight around broken flesh. The shadows flickered once, a final flicker of defiance, before they vanished entirely, consumed in silent implosion. He was gone. No scream, no explosion, just absence. Adam lowered his hand. The hall was quiet again. Dust settled slowly around his robes. The shattered tree pulsed faintly, strips of cloth falling from its broken branches like dying prayers. Aurora forced herself to breathe again. Her lungs burned as air rushed back in. Her heart slammed in her chest, shaking her entire frame. She looked up at Adam, her vision blurred with tears and exhaustion. "Adam," she whispered. He didn't turn. His gaze remained on the space where Valor had stood. Finally, he spoke, his voice calm but threaded with something hollow. "We're leaving." He raised his hand again. Chaos particles drifted from his palm, gathering around her broken body. Space folded under her, lifting her gently to her feet. Her legs trembled, unable to hold her, but the folded space kept her upright. She tried to speak again, but no words came. Only silent tears slipped down her cheeks. Adam turned toward her at last. His eyes softened faintly. For a moment, the endless cold faded, and the warmth she remembered returned. "I'm here," he said quietly. The recursion fold shivered around them as he snapped his fingers. Light enveloped them both, and in that final moment before the world vanished, Aurora closed her eyes and let the tears fall freely, feeling only the quiet warmth of his presence beside her. Light faded. The celestial plane welcomed them with its quiet eternity. Aurora felt stone beneath her feet again, smooth marble, cool and solid. She swayed, the weight of exhaustion pressing through her bones, but Adam's presence anchored her. They stood on the balcony overlooking endless temples, gardens, and pale skies streaked with purple dawn. Wind tugged at her hair. She sucked in a trembling breath, tasting the clean, scentless air of the plain. The sun hadn't risen yet, but the world felt awake, humming faintly with divine resonance that mortals would never hear. She turned to Adam. He didn't look at her. His eyes were distant, fixed beyond the clouds, beyond the plain itself. The faint gold strands in his black hair drifted with the breeze, catching dying starlight like threads of living dawn. His face was still calm, empty, but she saw the shadow behind his gaze. The tired sadness he carried so quietly. Aurora tried to speak. Her throat burned with unshed tears and words she didn't know how to shape. "Adam," she whispered. He didn't respond, only reached out with 2 fingers, brushing her cheek lightly. The touch felt heavier than any embrace. It told her everything she needed to hear. She closed her eyes and leaned into it, silent tears slipping down her face. Behind them, a servant appeared at the balcony entrance. He bowed quickly, eyes lowered. "My lord, Lady Aurora Jordan awaits you in the main hall." Adam lowered his hand. "We'll be there soon." The servant bowed deeper before leaving, his footsteps vanishing into the temple corridors. Silence returned, broken only by the quiet wind. Aurora opened her eyes. "Adam, what was he?" Her voice trembled. "Valor, he called you creator, but you said you never created him." Adam didn't answer. His gaze remained locked on the distant horizon, where the first hint of sunlight brushed across the layered clouds. Finally, he spoke, his voice low, almost a whisper. Some things create themselves. She swallowed hard, trying to understand, but her mind felt too tired, too human. She reached out, touching his arm gently. "Thank you," she whispered. He glanced down at her hand, then back to the horizon. "Rest, Aurora." She nodded, stepping back and bowing her head before turning and walking away. Her steps were slow, her body aching, but her heart felt lighter, safer. For now, Adam remained alone. The wind moved around him softly. He closed his eyes, feeling the plane breathe beneath his feet. He knew it wouldn't be over. Shadows never ended. They only waited for their moment to reform. And far away in the broken recursion fold he left behind, darkness stirred. The collapsed hall was silent. Its cracked stone floor lay littered with fallen cloth strips from the tree's shattered branches. Dim light pulsed within the broken trunk, flickering like a failing heart. Then the shadows moved, first as a faint ripple across the ground, then as thin streams of black rising from between the stones. They twisted upward, merging into each other, forming veins, bones, organs, skin. Valor reformed slowly. His body was different this time, thinner, cracked with faint gold lines across void black flesh. Chaos threads drifted from his shoulders like slow-moving smoke, curling and dissipating before reaching the broken walls. He opened his eyes, empty, silent, alive. He looked down at his hands, flexing the long black fingers slowly. Gold light pulsed under his skin, moving like sealed lightning across invisible pathways. He tilted his head faintly, studying his rebuilt form. Then he spoke. His voice was calm, hollow, the same as before but carried a quieter weight. Even annihilation is just another recursion. He stepped forward. The stone didn't crack under his feet. His form moved like a drifting shadow, silent and unbound by weight. He walked to the shattered tree, placing his palm against the broken trunk. The pre-origin shard was gone. His empty eyes narrowed faintly, not in anger, not in disappointment, just calculation, acceptance, as if he already knew this would happen. He turned his gaze upward. The recursion fold above him flickered, attempting to stabilize. Light bled through its cracks like dusk leaking through torn paper. Valor raised his hand, spreading his fingers slightly. Threads of chaos drifted from his palm, curling upward into the broken sky. "Adam," he whispered. There was no hatred in his voice, no malice, only a silent truth carried on breathless words. "You cannot erase your reflection." He closed his hand. The chaos threads thickened, weaving into the cracks above him. The recursion fold trembled violently, its structure struggling against the intrusion. Space twisted around him, the walls dissolving into spiraling gray mist. Valor stepped forward again, into the fold. The world shifted. He walked through shattered recursion layers, each step moving him across forgotten realms and silent temples floating in collapsed dimensions. He saw echoes of himself, reflections drifting through broken timelines, each carrying a different form, each holding the same emptiness in their eyes. None looked at him. None needed to. They were all him. He passed a world of flickering brass towers buried in pale sand, their spires bent under storms of black glass rain. He walked through a silent river that flowed upward into nothing, its waters carrying forgotten prayers from civilizations long erased. Finally, he reached it, a void between folds, an empty place beyond recursion, beyond the gaze of gods and the reach of chaos. It was silent, dark, cold, but not empty. At its center hovered a single flickering fragment of light. Not pre-origin, not chaos, something older. Valor approached it slowly. His bare feet didn't disturb the rippling darkness under him. He stopped before the flickering fragment, tilting his head faintly as he studied its trembling glow. Then he spoke, his voice quiet, almost tender. "You've waited long enough." He reached out. His long black fingers brushed the fragment softly. The light pulsed once, as if in recognition. Threads of gold drifted across its surface, binding to his touch. He closed his fingers around it gently. The void shivered. He pulled it close, raising it before his empty eyes. Within its glow flickered shifting shapes, worlds unborn, names unspoken, paths never walked. He tilted his head again, studying its secrets with silent patience. Then he spoke, his voice a soft echo through the cold dark. Adam, you forgot what lies before creation. He closed his fist. The fragment sank into his palm, merging with his form. Gold light pulsed across his veins, brighter than before, flickering with fragments of unborn realities. His eyes remained empty, silent. He turned away and stepped back into the folds. The void collapsed behind him, sealing silently. Somewhere far above in the celestial plane, Adam felt the ripple of existence bend for a brief moment. His eyes narrowed faintly, the calm shadow of his gaze flickering with silent thought. He raised his hand, closing it into a fist softly. Valor! He whispered the name like remembering a forgotten scar. Then he lowered his hand again. The dawn broke across the celestial plain, flooding silent temples and drifting gardens with quiet gold. But in Adam's eyes, dawn was just another ending waiting to begin. Aurora walked slowly through the quiet halls of the celestial palace. Her footsteps echoed across polished marble, the soft sound swallowed by towering pillars and silent prayer lanterns flickering overhead. Servants bowed as she passed, but she didn't see them. Her mind felt heavy, full, too full to hold. She found him standing where she knew he would be, at the far end of the western balcony, facing the layered dawn sky. The horizon glowed with pale gold, streaked with faded lavender where the stars died into daylight. Wind drifted across the balcony, pulling his black hair across his face, brushing the faint gold strands against his cheek. He didn't turn when she stopped behind him. For a while, neither spoke. The breeze moved between them. The world felt endless, cold and warm at once. Finally, her voice broke the quiet. Adam. He remained still. She stepped closer, clutching the folded sleeves of her white robe, her knuckles pale. Her eyes burned with exhaustion and questions that refused to settle. Who was he? Her voice trembled. What was Valor? Adam didn't answer right away. He closed his eyes, as if listening to something only he could hear. The silent pulse of realities moving beneath each other, unseen and infinite. When he spoke, his voice was calm, low, heavy with memory. Valor, he said softly, tasting the name like old iron on his tongue. He was born the moment I was created. Aurora frowned slightly. I don't understand. Adam's gaze remained on the distant dawn. When something is made that shouldn't exist, reality creates a balance. Correction. A shadow to match the light. Valor is that shadow. Her breath caught. He called you creator. He calls me what I am to him, Adam said. But I didn't create him by choice. I created him by existing. The moment I was formed, the multiverse built a reflection to erase what it saw as an anomaly. She swallowed hard. Erase you? Adam nodded faintly. Erase me. Erase what I built. Erase every system, every fold, every stabilized recursion I ever touched. Aurora's voice dropped. But why? You stabilized the multiverse. You saved countless realms. His eyes flickered with something tired. That is why he exists. Because I stabilized it. Because I imposed my will on it. Because I stopped it from returning to silence. She stepped forward quickly, her voice breaking. That's not wrong. He turned to her slowly. His eyes were calm, dark, heavy. But behind them burned something so quiet, so final, it silenced her instantly. It is not wrong, he said softly. But it is not what the multiverse wants. She looked away, tears pooling in her eyes. Then what does it want? Adam turned back to the horizon. It wants nothing. Nothingness is its nature. Chaos, dissolution, endless recursion and collapse. Life, order, memory, these are parasites to it. Beautiful parasites, but parasites all the same. Aurora's tears fell silently. They pattered against her robe, vanishing into the white cloth. The breeze pulled strands of hair across her face, but she didn't move to brush them away. "Then what is Valor's purpose?" she asked quietly. "Why does he keep coming back if you keep destroying him?" Adam closed his eyes. "Because he is not destruction. He is correction. No matter how many times I erase him, as long as I remain, he will reform. His purpose is simple, clean, final." He opened his eyes again. "To save the multiverse from me." Silence filled the balcony. The rising sun painted the marble gold, light spilling across his black robes like liquid dawn. The wind quieted, holding its breath with her. Aurora wiped her tears with trembling fingers. Her voice came out small. "But isn't that what you want too?" Her throat burned with grief and confusion. You always said everything you did was to protect existence, to stop it from collapsing, to save it." Adam didn't move. "Yes. Then why?" Her voice cracked. "Why do you fight him if you both want the same thing?" He remained silent for a long time. The wind moved between them again, brushing her tears away with quiet, cold mercy. Finally, his voice came, low and heavy as truth. "Because his way requires killing me." She flinched. Adam continued softly, his words carrying the quiet weight of finality. "To him, saving the multiverse is erasing its anomaly. Me, everything I built, everything I stabilized. He is pure correction. No heart, no vision, just balance. Perfect, unfeeling balance." His eyes narrowed faintly, seeing beyond the dawn, beyond the plane, beyond the threads of reality holding them both. "My way is life. His way is ending." Aurora stepped closer until she stood beside him. Her shoulder touched his arm lightly, grounding her to him. She didn't look at his face. She just stared at the horizon with him, tears drying slowly on her skin. "Adam," she whispered. He tilted his head faintly, acknowledging her but saying nothing. She closed her eyes, breathing in his quiet presence. "Will you win?" He didn't answer, because in the vast silence of the celestial plain, with dawn rising into an endless gold sky, there was no answer. Only the quiet wind moved between them, carrying the scent of faraway rivers and silent temples waking to prayer. Below, disciples moved through gardens and courtyards, unaware that above them stood a God and his shadow's truth. Unaware that somewhere, in a fold beyond existence, Valor walked silently with new purpose. Aurora opened her eyes and turned to him, searching his calm, shadowed gaze. "What will you do now?" Adam didn't look at her. His eyes remained locked on the horizon, where the sun broke fully, flooding the marble balcony with quiet brilliance. "Prepare," he said softly. His voice held no hatred, no resolve, just acceptance, like a man who had watched too many endings, and knew this was only another among countless dawns. Aurora nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks again. She reached out, taking his hand gently. He didn't pull away, and together, they stood in silence, watching the gold light wash over the plain, feeling its warmth on their tired skin. Because in the end, even gods and shadows of gods were just shapes in the dawn, waiting for the day they would fade into the quiet nothing they both called home. Adam stood silent as the dawn fully broke across the celestial plain. The warmth brushed his skin softly, but it did not reach him. Inside, he felt only the weight of what was coming. He closed his eyes, breathing in the quiet, before opening them again. His gaze sharpened, cold and calm. "Summon the Pantheon," he said softly. Aurora didn't move for a moment. Then she nodded, her fingers trembling as she released his hand. She turned and left without a word, her white robes trailing across the polished marble like whispering waves. Adam remained on the balcony, feeling the wind drift through his hair. He let it move him slightly, let it remind him that he was still here, still anchored, still alive. Soon, footsteps approached, many sets, each distinct in weight, rhythm, and silence. He didn't turn. They gathered behind him, forming a loose circle. Their presence pressed against the balcony air, each aura resonating differently. some bright like searing suns, others deep like forgotten oceans, but all silent, all waiting. Adam spoke without turning. Valor has reformed. The quiet deepened. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. He is no longer as he was. He has taken something from the recursion folds, something older than pre-origin, something before even me. They didn't speak. Their silence was not fear. It was understanding, knowing what it meant for something to exist before Adam. Adam lowered his gaze slightly, his black hair drifting across his cheek. He will come for us, not to kill us but to replace us, to turn us into reflections of himself. Empty, pure, balanced, without will. He turned then. His eyes moved across each of them, calm and dark. They met his gaze without flinching. Gods among gods, beings who had crossed existence to stand here, and yet before his gaze, they felt the truth of who they were beneath all titles. His method is simple, Adam continued. He will enter each universe, each recursion, each timeline, each fold, and he will claim your other selves. He paused. Not kill them, not erase them, but turn them into what he is. Mindless corrections. Shadows wearing your face. Silence fell again. It was heavy, cold, final. Finally, Adam spoke, his voice soft but carrying across the entire balcony, heavy as creation itself. We will not let that happen. His eyes flickered with something quiet, old, endless. You will go to each universe, each recursion, each fold. You will find your other selves. You will bring them here before Valor does. He stepped forward once. The marble rippled faintly under his footfall, a soundless shiver of existence bending around his choice. You will not tell them everything. You will not burden them with truth they cannot hold. You will only bring them here, alive, free. He let his gaze settle on them all again, each one meeting his eyes with silent acceptance. Because if Valor turns them, then even gods will become nothing but shadows. The wind moved again, brushing across their robes, lifting faint strands of hair, curling around silent weapons and drifting auras. Adam turned back to the dawn. And there is something else you must know, he said softly. Something I have never spoken, because it was never meant to be known. He closed his eyes. When I was born, there was a moment, a single fragment of time before my existence stabilized. A moment where I saw what lies before creation. The balcony fell silent. The plain itself seemed to hold its breath, as if the temples, the rivers, the endless drifting skies leaned closer to hear. Adam opened his eyes again. Black irises, calm and empty, but behind them burned a memory that no god should ever carry. I saw the before, he whispered. I saw what came before all existence, before chaos, before order, before recursion, before me. He raised his hand, staring at his palm as if expecting to see its flickering shadow reflected there. It was silent, not empty, not void, but silent, a silence so absolute it devoured all possibility, all thought, all will, a silence that was not nothing because even nothing is something. This was before nothing, before any concept of something or nothing could exist. His voice dropped to a whisper. It was beautiful. Silence pressed against the pantheon like a weight. Finally, Adam lowered his hand. That silence is what Valor wants to return us to. Not chaos, not void, not annihilation, but before anything ever was. He turned to them again, eyes calm. And that we cannot allow. He looked at each of them in turn. You are my pantheon, my children, my siblings, my reflections. You are what I built to protect existence, to give it shape, meaning, color, memory. He tilted his head faintly, hair drifting across his face. Go, gather your other selves, bring them home, before Valor does. They didn't speak, they didn't bow, they didn't kneel, they only moved. One by one, they stepped back from the balcony, turning silently, their robes flicking against marble as they walked away. Their footsteps were quiet, but the echoes carried weight. like gods leaving the halls of dawn to walk into endless night. Aurora remained. She stood beside him, her eyes fixed on his calm face. Her tears had dried, but her gaze still burned with silent grief. "Adam," she said softly, her voice trembling, If we fail, what will you do?" He didn't turn. He watched the gold sun rising beyond the layered clouds, the light brushing his black robes softly. "Then I will do what I was born to do," he said quietly. She swallowed hard. "Which is?" His voice was so soft she barely heard it. "End everything." The words fell between them like dying stars. Aurora reached out, gripping his sleeve tightly. Her fingers trembled against the cold fabric. "Don't," she whispered. He didn't move, didn't answer, but she felt his arm tighten faintly beneath her touch. Just once, just enough to tell her he heard. Then he stepped forward. The wind rose around him, swirling his hair across his face as he vanished, his form dissolving into drifting chaos particles that shimmered with black, gold, and silent silver. Aurora closed her eyes, feeling the breeze brush against her tear-streaked cheeks. Below, the celestial plane woke to morning prayer. But in her heart, all she heard was silence. The silence before everything. And she prayed that Adam would never have to return to it. The gods moved through the folds of reality. Each step took them into a different recursion, a different timeline, a different possibility where their other selves existed, living unaware under skies that never knew the truth of creation. Alice walked alone through a realm of drifting crystal plains, her footsteps leaving no mark on the glowing silver grass. Alfred moved silently through a war-scarred world where fire rained from broken heavens. Arya stepped into a sunless ocean fold, swimming through black water lit only by flickering blue plankton. Jordan traversed an endless labyrinth of bronze towers. Joshua moved through a recursion frozen in a single breath of time, his steps cracking the stillness like thin ice. Alexandria slipped into silent shadow folds, her presence flickering between forgotten tombs. Kael'thar descended into a world of endless jungles and primordial mists, his massive form coiling through vines older than any memory. Aurora walked through drifting dusk plains, her hair trailing behind her like falling night. Each carried Adam's silent command within them. "Find your other selves. Bring them home, before Valor does." But Valor was already moving. Deep in the silent void between folds, he stood before 7 towering obelisks. Each was carved from black stone streaked with faint gold veins. They pulsed with slow, deep light, as if breathing with a heart not their own. He raised his hand slowly. Chaos threads drifted from his fingertips, weaving into the obelisk's carved sigils. They lit up, flickering like dying stars, before stabilizing into cold, silent brilliance. His empty eyes watched them, unblinking. "Go," he whispered. The obelisks shivered. Then their forms bent, folding into themselves like paper twisted by unseen fingers. Each vanished silently, slipping into separate folds, separate universes, separate timelines. They reformed within each of the Pantheon's chosen recursion points. Alice paused as she walked across the crystal plains. The air shifted around her. She turned her gaze calmly and saw it. An obelisk standing between glassy hills, its black surface gleaming with faint gold. Threads of chaos pulsed around it, drifting like smoke that refused the wind. She narrowed her eyes. The obelisk pulsed once. Then the plains trembled. From the earth rose crystalline shadows shaped like jagged knights, their forms flickering with golden veins, their eyes empty as they raised glass swords. Alice sighed softly and raised her hand. Space warped around her fingers as her dominion expanded in silence. Alfred walked through the burning world. The flames parted before him, respecting his heat. But suddenly the fire twisted sideways. The ground cracked open, and from molten stone rose an obelisk, its black body wrapped in coiling gold symbols that hissed against the molten air. He frowned. The obelisk pulsed. From within the burning sky descended massive shadow WYRMs, their scales made of hardened magma, their eyes blazing gold. Alfred's gaze hardened. The flames around him flared, wreathing his body in roaring crimson as he raised his fist slowly. Arya moved through the sunless ocean. The dark water trembled. A flicker of black and gold glowed ahead. She stopped, floating silently as the obelisk formed on the ocean floor, its surface igniting with golden sigils that bled into the water like oil. Around it, the ocean twisted. Shadows solidified, becoming long serpents of abyssal current, their eyes gold and empty as they coiled toward her. Arya exhaled softly, cold mist drifting from her lips into the dark. The ocean froze around her, ice blooming silently in every direction. Jordan climbed the bronze towers. Lightning flickered across his arms as he moved, but he stopped when the metal under his feet vibrated. Below him, rising from a split in the tower's structure, emerged an obelisk. Its presence bent the tower itself, forcing metal to warp and shriek under its silent command. Bronze constructs crawled from the walls, their eyes gold, their bodies twisted into jagged centipede forms as they rushed toward him. Jordan smiled faintly, sparks crackling across his shoulders. Joshua stepped through frozen time, but a ripple moved across the still air. Ahead of him, where all was frozen in silent gray, an obelisk stood, pulsing with gold veins that flickered through the paused world. Around it, time fractures split. Silent reflections of himself stepped from each frozen shard, each wearing his face, each with gold eyes empty of thought. Joshua clenched his jaw softly, raising his hand. Order and disorder pulsed within his gaze, their quiet flames merging into stillness. Alexandria drifted through shadow folds, but the darkness parted. In the silent tomb before her stood an obelisk, its gold veins glowing against the black stone. Shadows around her bent toward it, solidifying into robed forms with empty golden eyes. Each raised a silent blade made of coalesced darkness. She tilted her head faintly. Shadows flickered across her fingers, drifting up her arm like silent ink smoke. Kael'thar coiled through primordial jungle. The mists parted before his massive head, his gold eyes flickering softly. But then the earth trembled. From between ancient roots rose an obelisk, taller than trees, its gold veins pulsing slowly. Around it, the jungle twisted, forming beast-shaped shadows with golden eyes. They roared without sound, charging toward him through silent mist. Kael'thar narrowed his eyes, rumbling softly as his fangs bared. Aurora walked the dusk plains. The horizon shimmered faintly. Then before her appeared an obelisk, standing alone on cracked stone, its gold sigils flickering like silent screams. Shadows pulled themselves from the ground around it, forming empty shapes with gold eyes, each wearing her face, each moving in perfect mirrored silence. She stepped forward, raising her hand. Space bent around her, light flickering across her eyes like silent galaxies. Across every fold, every recursion, every timeline, Valar's obelisks moved against them, slowing them, distracting them, buying him time. Deep in the silent void, Valar stood unmoving, chaos threads drifting from his shoulders. His eyes remained empty as he watched the obelisk's visions ripple across his mind. "They will fight," he whispered softly. "But every fight costs time." His fingers curled faintly, chaos flickering along his skin like golden lightning trapped under black water. "And every moment they spend is another step closer." He turned, shadows folding around him, slipping him deeper into the void beyond folds. The world bent away from his presence, forming rippling corridors of black and gold. His steps made no sound. His eyes never closed. "Soon," he whispered, "the before will return." The void pulsed silently around him, echoing the soundless truth he carried. And far above, across every fold and plane, Adam felt the tremor. His eyes narrowed faintly as chaos particles drifted across his skin in the quiet celestial dawn. "He's moving faster than expected," he murmured. The wind drifted around him softly, brushing his hair across his face. He closed his eyes, listening to the ripples of his pantheon's battles echo through existence. "Hold on," he whispered. His voice was calm, heavy, human. Hold a little longer. The dawn burned gold across the silent celestial plain, but within Adam's chest, only quiet shadows moved, waiting for the moment to awaken. Alfred against the obelisk. Flames roared around him. The sky cracked with molten thunder, splitting apart to reveal streaks of black fire raining down like spears. The air burned against his skin, feeding his power instead of harming him. Alfred stood still for a moment, watching the obelisk rising before him. It loomed from the cracked earth, black stone laced with gold veins pulsing slowly, rhythmically, like a sleeping heart. Around it, the molten ground bubbled and split open. Shadow W. Aramis crawled from the burning fissures, their scales formed of compressed magma, their eyes gold and empty. They roared silently. Their open jaws revealed spiral maws lined with jagged teeth of obsidian flame. Alfred rolled his neck slowly, feeling each vertebra crack. Heat flickered across his shoulders, manifesting as drifting sparks. His gaze sharpened. His arms rose to his sides, palms open. Fire spiraled up from the burning earth, wrapping around his arms like living serpents. The WYRMS lunged. He stepped forward once. The entire plane shook. Flames erupted from under his feet, surging outward in a tidal wave of crimson and gold. The first WRM lunged through it, its massive mouth snapping down toward him. Alfred raised his left hand. Break! His voice was calm, quiet, final. The flame around his hand condensed into a thin lance of blinding white heat. He thrust it upward into the WRM's open mouth. For a brief moment, its entire body froze. Then cracks split down its throat, burning white lines flickering out across its scales. It exploded silently, breaking apart into shards of cooling magma that rained down across the burning plain. Another WYRM coiled around him from behind, its body snaking across the ground. Its tail lashed out, smashing toward his legs with force enough to shatter mountains. Alfred didn't move. The tail struck his ankle. The impact rippled outward in slow motion. For a moment, the WYRM seemed victorious. Then the flame around his body pulsed once. The WRM's tail ignited, erupting upward along its entire length in a roaring tornado of flame. Its body writhed and twisted, scales peeling away in molten strips until nothing remained but drifting ash. Alfred exhaled softly, the flames curling around his lips like a silent roar. The obelisk pulsed. The burning sky split open again, revealing dozens more WRMs coiling within the flames above. They fell toward him like raining dragons, jaws wide, gold eyes empty of thought. Alfred's gaze hardened. He raised both hands. The flames around him condensed instantly, forming into two massive swords of pure crimson fire. Their edges flickered with white heat, warping the air around them. He stepped forward into the falling WYRMS. His blades moved silently. Each swing split the air with clean, heavy force. Flames extended from their edges, cutting through WYRM after WYRM, severing them in burning halves. Their bodies fell apart mid-lunge, dissolving into streams of drifting magma ash. One WRM lunged from his blind spot, jaws snapping toward his throat. He twisted his wrist. The flame sword in his left hand extended outward like a whip, curling behind him and slicing through the WRM's head in a single motion. Its corpse collapsed in two silent halves, fire blooming from the wound. He didn't pause. He stepped forward again, blades spinning around his body in burning arcs. The flames expanded with each strike, wrapping around his arms and chest until he became a moving sun, cutting through shadows with silent, burning grace. The obelisk pulsed again. This time, its gold veins flared bright. The ground beneath him split open completely, revealing a molten pit so deep it disappeared into darkness. From it rose a WYRM larger than any before. Its scales were gold-veined black stone, its eyes empty voids burning with faint white embers. It opened its mouth and roared. The sound didn't echo. It erased sound itself, leaving only vibrating silence that shook the burning plain. Alfred raised his gaze slowly. His swords dissolved into drifting embers. The flames around his shoulders condensed into his chest, flickering beneath his skin. He clenched his fist. The flames within him pulsed once, bursting from his chest in a silent explosion. His body burned white-hot, flames twisting around him like a second skin. He stepped forward and punched. His fist struck the WRM's open mouth. For a brief moment, nothing happened. Then white cracks split down its throat, spreading across its scales in spiderweb patterns. Light burst from within the cracks, leaking silent white flame. The WRM shattered. Its entire body dissolved into drifting ash that scattered across the burning sky like falling embers. Alfred lowered his fist slowly, his body flickering with cooling flame. His gaze turned to the obelisk. His gold veins pulsed once, then flickered out. It crumbled silently into black dust. He exhaled softly, closing his eyes as drifting ash settled across his scorched hair and shoulders. Done. To Arya, the ocean was silent. Black water pressed in from every side, heavy and cold. Blue plankton flickered around her like drifting stars, illuminating the endless dark. Arya floated calmly, her staff held loosely in her right hand, her robes drifting around her like dissolving ink. Ahead of her, the obelisk stood on the ocean floor, gold sigils bleeding into the dark water. Shadows coiled around it, solidifying into massive serpents with abyssal scales, their eyes burning gold. They moved silently, slipping through the water like coiling night. Arya exhaled. Mist drifted from her lips, spreading outward in curling tendrils. The water around her froze instantly, ice blooming from her body in silent fractals. The first serpent lunged toward her, its jaws wide, void black fangs flickering with chaos threads. She spun her staff once. The water twisted with her motion, forming a spiral of freezing current. The serpent's body entered the vortex. Ice bloomed across its scales instantly, spreading down its entire length until it froze solid. Arya flicked her wrist. The frozen serpent shattered silently, drifting away as fractured shards of black ice. Another serpent coiled around her from behind, squeezing tight enough to crush stone. Its body pressed against her chest, crushing her ribs with silent force. She closed her eyes. Ice burst from her body in every direction, jagged spears of frozen ocean piercing the serpent's coiling form. His grip loosened. She grabbed its frozen scales with her left hand, spun her staff, and sliced through its midsection. Its frozen body split apart, drifting away into dark silence. More serpents approached, dozens of them coiling through the dark. Their eyes burned gold, lighting the ocean in flickering lines. Arya's staff pulsed with freezing light. She raised it above her head. Ice bloom. Her voice was quiet, calm, heavy. The water around her froze instantly for miles in every direction. The entire ocean solidified into layered crystal ice, trapping each serpent mid-motion. Their bodies froze in curling arcs, their gold eyes flickering once before extinguishing. Arya lowered her staff. Cracks split the frozen ocean around her, drifting slowly across the silent ice. The obelisk's gold veins flickered, pulsed once, then dimmed. Its surface split apart, crumbling into drifting dust that fell through frozen water like black snow. She exhaled, her breath curling around her face in drifting frost. Her eyes closed softly. Done. The bronze labyrinth trembled beneath his feet. Metal towers rose endlessly into a storm-lit sky, their curved surfaces streaked with glowing runes. Lightning flickered between them, casting jagged shadows across the labyrinthine walkways. Jordan moved silently through it, his boots clicking softly against bronze plating. Sparks danced around his ankles with each step. Ahead, the air rippled. A deep hum vibrated through the towers, rattling their vast bronze ribs. From a crack in the labyrinth's floor rose the obelisk. Black stone veined with pulsing gold. Its surface flickered with shifting sigils, each symbol rewriting itself with silent, fluid grace. Jordan stopped. His eyes narrowed, watching as the obelisk stabilized. Around it, the bronze walls split open. From them crawled metallic constructs, centipede-shaped with thousands of legs clicking in perfect rhythm. Their carapaces were jagged bronze plates streaked with gold veins. Their eyes burned cold gold. They rushed him. Jordan exhaled softly. Sparks drifted from his lips. Lightning flickered down his arms, wrapping around his fists in glowing threads. He stepped forward once. The bronze floor bent under his heel, buckling silently. The first construct lunged. Its legs extended forward like spears, aiming to pierce his chest. He raised his right hand. The lightning around his arm condensed instantly, forming a thin blade of flickering white-blue light. He slashed downward. The construct split in half without a sound, its segmented body falling apart mid-lunge, the edges molten from the force of the cut. Another construct coiled behind him, its legs wrapping around his torso. Its carapace split open, revealing an inner maw lined with rotating blades. Jordan clenched his fist. The lightning blade dissolved. Instead, sparks burst outward from his back in a silent explosion. The lightning entered the construct's body instantly, surging through its bronze plates. Its entire form pulsed once with blinding white light before it fell limp, its systems fried beyond recovery. He exhaled, feeling the static hum in his bones. More constructs approached. Dozens. Hundreds. Their legs clattered across the bronze walkways in a soundless stampede. They surrounded him, eyes burning gold, bodies flickering with shifting runes. Jordan's eyes narrowed. He stepped forward. Lightning burst from his body in silent arcs, dancing across the floor, leaping from tower to tower. The constructs lunged. The lightning surged through them, adapting instantly to their structure. Their adaptive runes shifted in defense, trying to repel his attack. For a brief moment, their carapaces hardened, deflecting the lightning. His eyes flickered with quiet amusement. Adaptation. He raised his left hand. The lightning around him changed instantly. Its frequency shifted, the sparks turning deep violet. The construct's gold runes flickered again, adjusting to the new threat. Their carapaces hardened further, shifting into iridescent bronze scales. Jordan smiled faintly. Not enough. He clenched both fists. The lightning around him expanded outward, forming a massive sphere of flickering violet-white light. Its edges burned against the bronze walls, leaving molten scars. The constructs lunged into it, their bodies flickering as their adaptive runes shifted desperately. Their scales changed, hardened, resisted. Jordan closed his eyes calmly. The lightning sphere shifted again, its frequency rising beyond visible light. The sparks became silent pulses of ultraviolet force, burning through the construct's defenses like fire through wax. Their bodies melted mid-motion, collapsing into pools of molten bronze that dripped through the tower walkways. The sphere collapsed back into his skin. Sparks drifted from his hair, flickering across his calm gaze. He turned to the obelisk. Its gold veins pulsed brightly. The runes across its surface shifted again, flickering with unreadable symbols. The bronze towers around it bent inward, forming a massive dome over the obelisk. Within the dome, the metal warped and twisted into a colossal construct. It stood twice the height of the towers. Its body was plated with segmented bronze, each plate flickering with adaptive gold runes. Its eyes burned with twin suns of cold gold light. In its chest spun a sphere of pure adaptive force, flickering with every elemental signature at once. The construct raised its arms. Lightning, flame, ice, kinetic force, and gravity folded around its fists, forming swirling orbs of condensed destructive adaptation. Jordan exhaled softly. Sparks flickered across his jawline. Interesting. The construct lunged. Its fist smashed down toward him, trailing blazing kinetic energy. Jordan blurred sideways, the impact cratering the bronze floor, molten metal spraying outward in silent arcs. He raised his right hand, lightning condensing into a spear. He thrust it forward, aiming for the construct's chest sphere. The spear struck its adaptive field. The lightning flickered once, then dissolved as the construct's runes shifted, nullifying the frequency. Jordan's eyes narrowed. The construct twisted, its other fist sweeping sideways. A blade of compressed ice extended from its knuckles, slicing through the air toward his throat. He ducked, feeling the freezing wind cut across his hair. Sparks flickered around his eyes as he slid beneath its arm, thrusting his palm upward. The lightning around his hand shifted again, turning red-hot with thermal compression. He struck the construct's underarm joint. Its adaptive runes flickered, hardening the plates instantly. But before it could finish adapting, his lightning shifted again, turning violet, then blue, then ultraviolet in the span of a heartbeat. The plates cracked, molten lines spreading outward from his strike. The construct roared silently, its body twisted, its chest sphere pulsing with condensed adaptive energy. It released the pulse instantly. A blast of every elemental force slammed into Jordan, hurling him backward through 3 bronze towers. Metal shattered around his body, lightning flickering across his shredded robes. He skidded across the bronze floor, sparks flying from his boots. For a moment, he knelt there, lightning drifting softly around his shoulders. He exhaled. Then he rose. His eyes burned with silent light. Lightning twisted around his entire form, flickering through every frequency he had ever known. He stepped forward once. The construct raised its fists, charging its adaptive pulses. Jordan blurred. He appeared before its chest sphere, his right hand raised, lightning coiling around his fingers in silent, flickering threads. Adapt to this. His voice was quiet, calm, final. He thrust his palm forward. The lightning entered the sphere. Its adaptive runes flickered violently, shifting through thousands of sequences in a heartbeat. But Jordan's lightning shifted faster. Each frequency change slipped past its defenses. Each pulse burned deeper, until the runes collapsed, their sequences failing. The sphere flickered once, then exploded in silent, blinding white light. The construct froze mid-motion. Cracks split down its body from the chest outward. Light leaked from within the cracks, flickering through its adaptive plates. Tried to move, but its arms fell limp. His eyes flickered once, then dimmed. Its entire form shattered. Bronze fragments rained down across the labyrinth, glowing with molten light. The obelisk pulsed once, its gold veins flickering violently. Then they dimmed. It crumbled silently into drifting black dust. Jordan exhaled softly, lowering his hand. Lightning flickered across his skin, then dissolved into sparks that drifted away on the silent bronze wind. He closed his eyes, feeling the crackling warmth within his bones. Then he turned, walking away from the crumbling obelisk without a word. Joshua versus the obelisk. The mirror chamber blinked into existence. Silver tiles stretched outward in every direction. Floor, ceiling, horizon, until space lost meaning. There was no up or down, only endless reflection. Joshua stepped forward, bare feet touching a floor that echoed without sound. His reflection rippled beneath him, but it didn't move like he did. It watched him. He paused. The air was still, too still, like time had been caught holding its breath. Then the obelisk emerged. It rose slowly from beneath the mirrored floor, its surface polished like black glass veined with pale silver. It didn't pulse. It shimmered. And for a second, Joshua saw himself reflected in its body. Only it wasn't him. The reflection smiled. He didn't. The obelisk pulsed once. And from the rippling walls, shadows peeled away. Humanoid, fluid, identical. They took form as copies of Joshua, each one perfect. Same build, same hair, same expression. But their eyes were wrong, void black with glints of moving stars, like reality folding in. They stepped forward together. Joshua didn't move. He just looked at them. 5 copies. 10. 20. Then the first one lunged. Joshua tilted his head slightly and sidestepped. A fist passed through where his jaw had been. He caught the arm mid-swing, twisted it, and drove his knee up. The clone's elbow bent the wrong way. It didn't scream, just twisted its head around with a cracking snap, trying to bite him. He shoved it back with a ripple of power. Space warped behind his palm like heat haze. The clone flew backward, smashing into mirrored ground. But instead of breaking, the floor rippled like water. The clone sunk, gone. The others moved in. A swarm of silent Joshuas. All perfect, all flawed. One came from behind, another from above. Two more flanked him. Joshua exhaled. His irises flickered, silver circuit lines forming and vanishing. Space twisted around his body like a cloak. He vanished. Fold step. He reappeared 10 feet away. Half the swarm turned instantly. Their faces remained blank, emotionless, but their eyes burned, voids filled with simulations. Copies with adaptive thought, he murmured. Not bad. The ground beneath him shattered as 3 clones burst upward. He reacted mid-air, kicking off the shoulder of one mid-leap, flipping backward, and slamming his palm into another's face. Reality twisted around his hand like shattered glass. Spatial lock. The clone froze mid-air, trapped in folded dimensions. Its body bent unnaturally, warping, breaking apart like porcelain before collapsing into fragments. One clone landed behind him and punched. Joshua didn't turn. He raised 2 fingers. A pulse of inverted time shimmered across his back. Chrono rewind. The clone's punch never happened. It jerked, confused, as time unwound in reverse for 3 seconds. His hand retracted. The stance reverted. Joshua turned and slammed his forehead into the clone's nose, cracking it open. Blood sprayed silver, not red. The clone screamed. It was the first sound any of them had made. He followed up with a palm strike to its chest, pushing spacetime into its core. The clone imploded. Gone. They learned fast after that. The next wave used fold step 2. Joshua blinked as 4 appeared around him in the same moment. They mimicked his breathing, his posture, even his aura. He gritted his teeth and dropped to one knee, slamming his palm to the ground. Spatial anchor. The world shook. A tether of reality exploded outward in all directions, freezing the clones mid-phase. They jerked, glitched, held in place by gravity-bound folds of stabilized space. He rose, breathing hard, lightning crackling from his spine. They broke free a second later. Too fast. One clone screamed and exploded into energy. Another absorbed the light and shifted, its body turning dark, etched in fractured white lines. Joshua watched closely. Adaptation and merger. That's new. The broken clone charged. Its body twisted between states, part physical, part energy, part null. It raised a hand, and black strings lashed outward, slicing the mirror world like piano wire. Joshua jumped. Too slow. One string cut his leg. Blood spilled across the mirrored floor. He landed hard, one knee down. Pain burned, sharp and electric. The clone didn't stop. It blurred forward, swinging the strings again. Joshua grunted and clapped both palms together. Chronosense. Surge mode. Time slowed. The world turned glassy. Each movement stretched. Every breath echoed. The strings crawled toward him like molasses. He stood, and in that slowed world he moved like lightning. He stepped to the left, grabbing one string, folded it into itself, bent space like paper. The string vanished. He turned, caught the clone mid-lunge, and drove his fist into its chest. Dimensional crush. The clone froze, then caved inward, like gravity had collapsed inside it. It disappeared into a single point of compressed matter, then vanished. Time returned. He exhaled. The rest of the swarm paused, watching, adapting, learning. The obelisk pulsed again. Its surface rippled, and from it emerged a final clone. Taller. Denser. The others moved away. This one had eyes. Silver, like Joshua's, but alive. Stepped forward, one hand raised. The mirrored world shattered behind it as the floor cracked open into spiraling mirrors. It carried a sword, Joshua's sword, forged from overlapping timelines and spatial vectors. It moved like a ghost between breaths. Joshua narrowed his eyes. All right. The final clone blurred. They clashed mid-air. Sparks erupted across the chamber as timelines bent and fractured around them. Blades of compressed momentums collided, folding sound and space. Joshua's spatial lash clashed against the clone's mirrored blade. One blocked, one pierced, one split sideways. They moved through mirror after mirror, every impact creating more reflections of their battle. Joshua's breath came heavy. Blood slid down his shoulder. His clone was faster now. Stronger. Every move copied. Every ability countered. But Joshua wasn't just strength. He was something else. He smiled through bloodied teeth. "You're not me." He dropped his weapon. The clone blinked. Joshua opened his palm. A tiny fragment of reality floated above it. A compressed shard of all his failures. Every loss, every rewind, every fight he shouldn't have survived. The clone lunged to interrupt. Too late. Joshua fed it into the air. The shard expanded, raw, unstable spacetime erupting outward in every direction. Chrono collapse. Every reflection shattered. Time buckled. Gravity flipped. The clone screamed as its form tore apart, trying to adapt to collapsing timelines, bending in on itself, replicating faster than it could stabilize. It failed. It died. Not shattered. Not defeated. Just erased. The obelisk pulsed weakly. The silver veins dimmed. The mirrored world fractured into floating panels. They drifted apart, like pieces of a broken dream. Joshua stood alone, breathing, bleeding, alive. He wiped the blood from his chin, spat onto the broken floor, and watched as the obelisk crumbled into ash. He didn't say anything, didn't smile, didn't pose. He just turned his back and walked away. Each step echoed like glass breaking beneath a god. The echoes stood in a half-circle around her. Some cried. Some glared. One reached for her with a hand still wrapped in chains. They all wore her face, but none of them were her now. The obelisk pulsed behind them, its gold veins flaring, casting them in flickering light like they were phantoms on a stage. Alexandria didn't move. Her eyes, calm and old, watched each of them carefully. Then they moved. The first, young Alexandria, sprinted forward, barefoot, eyes filled with terror. Her hand reached out in a child's plea. Alexandria stepped forward and caught it gently. The girl burst into black shards. A scream rose from behind. One of the war-torn echoes lunged with a blade made of sorrow and rust. Alexandria caught the blade between two fingers. The metal shrieked, bending inward on itself before vanishing into smoke. More came. They moved together like puppets dancing to a forgotten script. One wept as she attacked. Another laughed. Another whispered apologies between strikes. Alexandria moved like a shadow folding into itself. One palm met an echo's neck. Her fingertips flickered with ink-black energy. The echo crumbled, silent. Another came at her low, twin daggers flashing violet. Alexandria tilted her head once, and the space between them froze. The attacker shattered mid-swing. But the more she erased, the more stepped from the obelisk's light. Dozens, hundreds, each one an Alexandria that could have been. A world where she chose fear. One where she chose revenge. One where she bowed. One where she begged. One where she burned it all. They screamed as they charged. Alexandria let her eyes close. The void around her slowed. Even the wind, if there was ever wind, stopped. She opened her eyes, and dominion unfolded. A black sigil bloomed beneath her feet, wide as a city, layered in swirling rings of ancient markings. Each ring pulsed once. The echoes froze mid-step. Even the ones mid-air locked in place. She raised her hand. "Existence is not obedience," she whispered. The sigil's outer ring shattered. The second ring pulsed. Reality cracked. Each echo shook, then unraveled, breaking apart into long ribbons of shadow and memory. Their voices didn't scream. They sighed, like the final exhale of dreams that never made it. The last ring pulsed once, then fell quiet. Alexandria stood alone again, but the obelisk still pulsed. Stronger now, its golden threads twisted upward, forming wings behind it, mocking hers. The space around it collapsed in, and from its core stepped a new figure. It looked like her, exactly like her, but its smile was sharp. The skin glowed with mirrored power. Its eyes didn't reflect anything, just gold. Cold, unwavering gold. Alexandria's shadow twin stepped forward. You denied what you were. Its voice was hers, but hollow, reassembled from fragments of memory. You called it choice. You called it freedom. But you feared what you could become. The obelisk floated behind the twin, pulsing faster now, like a heartbeat caught in rage. Alexandria said nothing. She only stepped forward. And they clashed. The twin moved like light inverted. Every step bled black radiance. Her blows bent space itself, slamming punches that split the void into mirrored shards. Alexandria blocked with her forearm, each clash sending shockwaves outward that bent the white bridge beneath them. Then came the twin's blade, a single-edged weapon formed from condensed will, a gift from the obelisk. Every slash sent cuts through potential. Alexandria ducked under the first arc, pivoted into a palm strike that sent the twin flying back, but not far. The twin twisted mid-air and returned with a spin kick that tore open the bridge behind them. Alexandria raised her arm. Shadows pooled around her elbow, hardening into a gauntlet. The kick slammed into it, reality cracked, but held. She caught the twin's leg, slammed her down. The floor cracked. Alexandria raised her hand, shadows swirling into a spear of ink and silence. But the twin vanished, peered behind her. A blade sank toward her back. Too slow. Alexandria's dominion blinked into place. The moment the blade touched her robe, space folded, and the strike warped away, reversing back into the twin's own shoulder. Blood spilled, but it wasn't red. Gold. The twin snarled and grinned all at once, grabbing the wound and burning it shut with a whisper of command. "Is that all?" she said, breathing heavy. "You fight like you want to win, but your heart's still chained." Alexandria's expression didn't change, but her fingers flexed once. The void shook, and from behind her rose the fragments of her dominion, now forming something else. Pillar. A throne. A reminder. "Free will isn't a weapon," she said softly. "It's not a power to command." Her eyes locked on her twins. "It's something I gave to myself." The air twisted. The twins screamed and lunged, blade burning with gold flames, a strike made to end all things. Alexandria met it with her bare hand. The blade shattered. She stepped forward. Shadow erupted behind her. Massive wings of flowing ink and light. They stretched outward, dwarfing the bridge, the obelisk, the twin. They weren't made of feathers. They were made of broken promises reforged into truth. The twin stumbled back. But Alexandria didn't stop. She touched the twin's chest, gently. The obelisk behind them pulsed once, then cracked, one golden line down its surface. The twin's eyes widened. Her form flickered. Reality resisted. Alexandria closed her eyes. "Goodbye," she whispered, and pressed forward. Her dominion flared once, one final ring igniting with silent fire. The obelisk shattered. It didn't explode. It just ceased. Gone in an instant, like it was never meant to be. The bridge stopped trembling. Alexandria stood alone again. She exhaled, slow. Her hands trembled faintly as her wings dissolved behind her. Black threads drifted away, carried into the void on winds that didn't exist. She looked around once, no sound, no form, but the silence felt different now. Warmer. She turned her head slightly and walked back toward the fold, back toward home, back to the others.